What's going on, ladies and gentlemen and ladies? I'm back for another live stream. I have some people coming on with me, but I'd like to add some content before I bring on my guests. So we're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to give my thoughts about a few things. If you guys are familiar with JailCon 2021, maybe you're not. If you're a correction officer, JailCon is one of the best conferences that you could ever go to. If you're a correction officer, retired, whether you're still working, I just spoke there the other day. I think it was like 2 days ago or a day ago. I can't remember. My days are mixed up, but it was an incredible time. Great people. Shout out to Doug, Tate. I mean, all of y'all was a tremendous blessing to me speaking at JailCon, and I went off. I want you guys to know I went off. I say it like it is. It is like I say it. That's pretty much how it rolls. So until I get my folks on here, I'm going to chat it up with you guys and say welcome back, man. I've been kind of MIA. I was out of town for a couple of days. I was speaking around the country. I was on Candace's own show, and then I wanted to speak at JailCon. And a lot has happened. A lot has happened. And I want a few of y'all to get on here before I bring my guest in. But a lot has happened. I miss Donald Trump. I ain't gonna even lie. Like, that dude, first of all, I thought he was an incredible president when he was in office. I thought Donald Trump did an incredible job. I didn't like the pushing of the Fauci or whatever. I didn't like him pushing that. I hated it. I hated the fact that he let Dr. Fauci stay in his position. In any level of leadership, I despise that Donald Trump did that. I didn't like the way he handled the COVID press conferences and stuff. So there's some things that I did not like that he did. I wish he wouldn't tweet at basketball players all the time because it was irrelevant, because we out here killing them on the Instagram and the YouTubes and the Rumbles. We out here, putting them to sleep softly. So there was no need for Donald Trump to even engage and give the left any reason to be combative towards him. But I miss him. He was the greatest president that we've had in my lifetime. The dude was just doing everything that a president should have done for the people of this country and the constitutional republic that we live in. He was doing everything that he should have done. And I think, outside of the little COVID stuff, I think he did an incredible job. Our relations, our foreign relations were incredible. People understood us. They knew that we were going to put the hammer down. You mess around and say the wrong thing and do the wrong thing to America, you're going to take that L. Big L. L dog soup is what you were going to have for lunch if you mess with America. Soleimani, they turned into ground beef when they tried to mess with the United States of America. Now the Taliban. I want to say Columbine and Taliban at the same time. Lord help my spirit. But the Taliban is out of control. And I'm going to say this before I bring my guests on. I got ABL, I got Vincent, I got my boy Chandler. I remember when Chandler was a little kid at the 2018 Black Leadership Summit. That kid, I was like, this kid's going to be the president one day. I'm going to bring them on here in a second. But it's no way in the world that people shouldn't be held accountable for what happened in Afghanistan. How are they not held accountable? How do you pull the troops out without pulling out the American citizens and people who are allies who we are now trying to rescue in a huge scramble? And I'm just going to say this. This is my opinion. YouTube, don't get mad at me. It's just my opinion. I believe that President Trump is the most popular president in American history. I think that President Trump had more votes than any president in American history. That's just my opinion. Now, obviously, there needs to be legislative steps to prove it, but that's what I believe. And I'm not a domestic terrorist because I believe that. So make sure you hit the like button, hit the like button, hit the like button, hit the like button. I'm going to bring my guest in. Y'all make sure that y'all show them some love. If you want to ask the super chats, I'm just telling you right now, if we get into a heated conversation, I'm not going to be able to jump on your super chats because I don't want to break the stream of conversation. However, what I will attempt to do is answer the super chats as they come in. You do a $50 super chat, $100 super chat, $500. I'm going to break the conversation to do that because I feel like you're making an incredible sacrifice to support the channel by doing that. Not saying that the $20 ain't, but I'm like, if you're doing 50, I'm going to have to jump in there and say it. But if you decide to do a super chat, thank you for it. Just know that I love you for it and thank you. I appreciate it. I'll try to jump in as many as I can, but that may not be the case in this conversation. So without further ado, y'all go ahead and welcome our guests. We got ABL in his house. We got my boy Vince in his house.
What's up?
We got Chandler Crump in his house. What's up, y'all?
What's going on, everybody?
And
Yeah,
good.
thanks for having me.
All right, man. We finna get right off into this, man. Let's start with Donald Trump, man. You know, I personally, I miss Donald Trump, you know, and I'm trying to be funny business, man, but I miss Donald Trump. I thought he was an incredible president. What do you guys think about Donald Trump? Do you miss him, or are you glad that he's gone? Y'all let me know what you think.
Well, maybe. I think I for one, I miss him really, because with Trump, you were going to get the honest truth. You could love it, you could hate it, but it was going to be honest. He'll tell you, he'll be a little bit too honest. It's like when they overshare, when they tell you too much, it's like, all right, you could have kept that one, you know. But the thing is, regardless of what's going on, you knew it was going to be the truth. That's what we got to have. I mean, you go from two extremes. You have like ultimate transparency to no transparency. I mean, the guy we got now, he's pretty much not even in office. All you got to do is be a figurehead, to go out there and talk a little bit. He don't even do that. I got to go back to home to Wilmington. The Wilmington, sir, you got the Afghanistan thing going on. People trying to hop on the plane, getting stuck in the landing gear, human bodies flying in the landing gear. Imagine you are on your Spirit flight and you see somebody in the landing gear outside your window. That's going on, and you want to go to Wilmington? Trump would never. Trump would be on the phone or on television for hours until this whole thing got resolved, and it wouldn't have gotten to the point where it is right now. So yeah, I definitely miss having an actual leader rather than an empty husk of a man in the White House.
100%. Let me interject real quick. Dragon said, can we pray after the live stream, or after we're done with the live stream? I'll do a prayer after the live stream. Obviously, I'll do it by myself. I'll pull everybody out. Y'all wait for me in the waiting room. I'll say a quick prayer, and then we'll be out of here. I told somebody if they do $50, I'll answer the super chat. So let's see. We got Travis B. Can you help out the military community being forced to take the ouchie Fauci? Love you, brothers. Thank you for all you do. Yeah, I'm gonna do what I can to help bring awareness to that and do what I can to try to prevent that at any matter, any means that I have available. What do you guys think? Chandler, Vince, what do y'all think about Donald Trump? Do you miss him? Are you glad that he's out of there?
Yeah, I definitely say I miss him for a lot of reasons. And I think there are a couple of reasons that I think it's good he's gone. Now, those I'll get to those in a minute, because those are pretty controversial. Yeah. So at the beginning, I think in 2015 and 2016, Trump represented a wave of not only people, supporting him in his presidency, but getting involved in politics and active in general, whether they hated them or they loved him. He was such a polarizing figure that a lot of people woke up, and we were in a very pivotal point in our nation at that point. We could have gone either direction, whether it was Hillary, I don't even know, we'd still be a nation at this point, or it was Trump, and our nation was doing good up until this most recent election. But a lot of people woke up, and I think that amount of people waking up, especially, older folks who had already been disillusioned with the political system, seeing a new wave, a new ship that they could hop on and actually represent something to make this nation great again, as he said, I think the Trump wave was really good. And so it was the rise of myself in politics as well. Him being a president really made me interested. And Brandon, like you were telling at the beginning, it inspired me to go to the Young Black Leadership Summit in 2018. And that was nearly 3 years ago. And just to see how things have kind of come along now, it's really interesting to see just where this nation is. And I think the reason why I'm happy, one singular reason why I'm happy he's gone is because it'll make it even more present and more of an active reason why people should get involved, because they're like, okay, well, we had Trump for all this period of time. I was saying on media, orange man bad, Trump is a racist. And now I'm looking at Joe Biden, and he says things like,
I got hairy legs.
He says that. So, I mean, if he's saying that, then I got to step up. I got to say, hold on, maybe Trump wasn't so bad. Maybe Trump did some good things for us. I don't know. Maybe this Biden guy, I got to do a little more research, get involved. And eventually when somebody does that research, they wake themselves up even further than they could have been before. And so, there's a lot of reasons why I'd say Biden. It's a little dangerous where we are right now, especially with all the Afghanistan stuff and the forcing our military veterans to get the Fauci ouchie. I guess that's our brand safe word we're using today. Although I call them, if you don't want to get it, I call you a vax rebel. So no matter what, through all those different things, I think it's good that we're seeing things, seeing why we miss him. And I think it's great that we have a gathering of people here talking about it as well.
Well, Chandler, Vince, before you go, Chandler, how old were you in 2018 at that Young Black Leadership Summit?
I had freshly turned 14.
14. Let me just say this real quick, because I think people need to understand when they see Chandler on here, why it's significant that he's on here and how incredibly smart this young man was. As young as he was, Out of all the people there, I mean, we had Ben Carson, we had all kinds of people speaking there, some of the most incredible speakers. And this young man, when we asked, did anybody have any questions or make any comments? He came to the front. He was bold. He was courageous. And I was shocked that a young man could be so intelligent and freely speak. So shout out to Chandler for that. Vince, what's your thoughts?
I mean, I absolutely agree with basically everything you guys have been saying. I too definitely miss Trump. I think that Trump, his election, his sort of rise to power, essentially represented the first serious rebellion against the political class that has basically ran our country into the ground, sold it out, hollowed it out for the past 40 or so years. And I mean, obviously, I don't think Trump as president was perfect. I think there was a lot more he could have done. But I also think that he was really kind of the catalyst into this new wave of like right-wing populism, of nationalism, that I think is going to probably extend a lot more beyond this. And I think that when you really compare the utter state of the country as to kind of where it was under Trump, which was going pretty good, versus where it is under Biden, basically everything in the country is a disaster right now. You have like a national embarrassment on the world stage. You have gas prices where they are, inflation, all this stuff. I think it's really going to basically show people the true contrast. And for conservatives too, it's like, look at the way we're being treated. You know, we have this basically vaccine apartheid state getting set up. We're straight up being persecuted by the government, many of us, you know. And so I think that to a lot of people, I guess I'll just address this because there's a lot of people who kind of totally turn their backs on Trump, right? Have abandoned Trump, that are like conservative. I'm not talking about like necessarily the Mitt Romney types, but actually people who were like strong MAGA supporters over the past 4 years. And, you know, to those people, I would say, sure, you know, he was better as a candidate than a president. I think we agree on that. But also he was a very good president. But you look at just objectively, where you are in the country now versus where you were specifically as a conservative, you know, at least under Trump, you weren't being literally hunted down by the FBI for the most part. You know, you weren't being blocked out. And you know, for a fact, if Trump were president right now, sure, a lot of this vaccine stuff is local. They're looking at doing some federal stuff too. But you would at least have someone running the federal government who would be standing up against all of this. You don't have that. You have someone in the federal government who's going to, at the very least, stand by and do nothing. At the very most, basically push it, you know, so.
100%, man. I agree with a lot of what you guys said. I think that Trump was incredible. I mean, God dang, Joe Biden is literally circling the drain. I mean, then he gets to walk off stage and don't answer questions. And then the media is straight covering the fact that he's responsible vicariously for many deaths that's going to occur. Let me get this super chat real quick, $20 super chat from Freedom. Have you and other conservatives influencers consider organizing a protest in DC? Nobody is doing anything. And that feels like the next step to be heard. So, you know, it's kind of difficult, right? You know,
it's kind of a Fed post. That's the Feds are very interesting.
Yeah,
with that
right.
Yeah, last time I was in DC. Oh no.
Can you guys do a protest again at the Capitol and get us all sent to prison? However, I do think that it's hard to organize, but we do need to do things as individuals. You know, a protest at this point is, you know, to somewhat is a mockery if you're not going to go further than holding the sign, beating your chest. As individuals in our country, we have to do something. The level of influence that you have as an individual, you need to pursue that, you know, the avenue, whether you're a writer, whether you are an influencer on social media, whether you can, you know, you can affect the people that are around you. You need to start there. Start with your family. Start with teaching them what's right. Start with making sure your kids don't turn to the left as lunatics. That's something that you can do as an individual. Let me get this $50 super chat, and then I'm gonna jump into something else. You guys are awesome. Do you think Donald Trump was a racist? Seems to me there is never any real proof about it. All right, we could jump on that because I think that's an incredible question. Personally, I do not think Donald Trump is a racist, was a racist. He may be racially insensitive at times, but the man is not a racist. People loved him. Black people, white people, Hispanic people, rich people, poor people. He did so many things for black people in this country, even in his own personal life before he was president. In 1998, he was given an award for his efforts in the inner city communities, in the urban communities by Jesse Jackson's fraudulent self and the Rainbow Coalition. So the guy has been doing a lot of incredible things, in my opinion. What do you guys think about Donald Trump being a racist?
Well, my thing is, where's the evidence for this? People, they say stuff like that, but it's like, okay, if you want to make that kind of accusation, prove it. Show me the racism. I mean, I'd love to see it. If somebody could say, here's all the racism, here's the evidence, here's the proof, then that'd be it. People want to talk about he got sued back in the day for discrimination. It's like, okay, people get sued all day, every day. What does that mean? You could sue anybody for anything. Nick Cannon got sued by his former nanny because she said that their baby headbutted her and caused her severe injury. It's like a baby headbutted you and caused you severe injury. Come on. So just because that lawsuit happened does not mean that Nick Cannon is somehow beating on women and stuff like that and raising monsters. I mean, just put things in perspective. Give me real evidence. What Trump would do, Trump was like he was really respected in the black community. People loved him in the black community. He was loved. Go back to the 80s in New York. A lot of black folks were trying to get money, trying to start a business, and they couldn't go to a bank. They wouldn't give them a loan. They couldn't go anywhere. And they would go to Trump. They go to Trump, talk about, hey, I have an idea. Here's my business plan or whatever. And Trump write him a check and say, hey, whenever you get back rolling, come back to me, pay me back. Don't worry about it till then. And then a lot of times, if not all the time, they would come back with a check and Trump rip the check up, tear the check up, throw it away, take their hand. Good luck with your business. We'll just straight give money away. That's why he won that award. And then my last thing, you guys know Rand Paul is an ophthalmologist, works on eyes. He's an actual eye surgeon. Trump funded at least one of his trips to Haiti to do free eye surgery. So I don't know what kind of racist funds free doctor visits to work on cataracts and stuff like that in a third world type black country. I don't know what kind of racist does that.
Yeah, for myself, I want to take this for everybody in the stream. I want to take this back in time to 2015. Now, to make everybody feel super old, I was 11 years old in 2015 when Trump had first announced his candidacy for president, which means I was in 5th grade in elementary school. Get that in your head. But in elementary school, we're all young kids. We're all, still picking our noses, all sorts of stupid stuff like that. But we're also paying at least a little bit of attention to the news. It's all over Fox, CNN, whatever network your parents watch that you happen to be sitting down there watching with them. That's where it was talked about. And so in the cafeteria, I would literally hear the kids saying, oh, you heard about Trump? And barely any of us really knew who Trump was. He was really before our time as far as like a major person. I mean, he had that Apprentice TV show, but that was before we could really remember. And so we didn't really know who Trump was. We heard all about the news. All of us talking in the cafeteria, Trump's running for president. I heard he's a racist. And I remember at that point, I was kind of like, okay, well, I was raised in my family to look at things from a very logical perspective. You can hear all sorts of news and rubbish about different things. You can hear things about Obama, hear things about Herman Cain, hear things about all sorts of different people, but you really need to get down to the facts of things. And so when I was in school, I would talk to these kids and I would ask them, okay, well, if he's a racist, and this is before I did any research myself, if he's a racist, why is he a racist? And at that point, I mean, this is a low grade. These were 5th graders. They were like, well, I don't know. The news told me. The news said, oh, he doesn't like black people. The news people said this and that. I was like, okay, well, if the news people said that, what did they base that on? No answer. And then I started talking to teens about this. And then I'd even talk to my own teachers in elementary school who were also, for some reason that doesn't make sense to me, saying that Trump was a racist to our classroom. I remember in 5th grade, a teacher of mine, or a teacher that was in my school, said something about, oh yeah, guys, if your parents are voting for Trump, I don't know about that. I've heard a lot of things. I think Trump's a racist. And I'd ask that teacher straight up, what makes you say Trump is a racist? No answer. And so as I grew older, I did more and more research. I saw that there was absolutely no answer. And in fact, I saw more things that said to the exact contrary. Like ABL said, he won those awards. He funded those trips to Haiti to take care of those underprivileged people who have been hit by hurricanes and earthquakes and all sorts of terrible things. He's done everything at every point in his career to uplift the black community, and the black community loved him for it. They made songs for him. 1 year before he announced his candidacy for office, there's a rapper that made a song up like Trump. Okay, all sorts of people had cool things. But the second he announced that he was going to run for president of this nation as a Republican, suddenly he was this big demon. And because he won, well, now we know where things are now.
Good observation. Go ahead,
I would
Dan.
say, I mean, I definitely don't think he's a racist, but I would also say, I think we reject, and I think we should all frankly reject this whole debate to begin with, because what this essentially is a left-wing setup, right? They'll call basically anyone who's a threat to the system, Trump, Tucker Carlson, whatever figure we're discussing here, they will immediately try to put you as a conservative essentially on defense, right? So they immediately try to say, you are a racist, you're a white supremacist, you're a fascist, whatever it is. And basically what you are kind of forced to do by what they're trying to set up is basically immediately go on defense, right? They are on offense and you are on defense. And I think the second you even entertain the idea and sort of try to defend yourself from it, you've already basically lost to them. You've already basically fulfilled what they want. And then they're the ones who are, this is part of the reason why, conservatives constantly are on defense when it comes to the culture wars, because we are always the ones who have to really stand up and like defend ourselves against what they're saying instead of really setting a narrative and writing a narrative for ourselves. So I would say that obviously it is not the case, but I also think that kind of just debating this, is he a racist? It's a losing strategy to begin with. How do you even prove that you are not something, right? You're supposed to prove that you are something. Right? You're supposed to prove someone guilty, not prove someone innocent. So I think that we're kind of already being set up to lose if we're entertaining the idea of like, well, here's why he's not racist. It's like, no, I think we should just basically reject it altogether because it's nonsense and it's kind of a setup. It's kind of what they're trying to force us to do is go on defense.
100%. You made an incredible point. Is that it's almost like going to a trial. The accuser, the person who's accusing somebody of something has the burden of proof, right? You don't have to somehow come up with a reason why you're innocent. They have to prove that you're guilty. Yeah. And I think the same thing goes for Donald Trump. Like you said, when people say you're racist or he's racist, and it's like, no, you're an idiot. Give me some evidence before you even have this conversation with me. And if you can't, you're the idiot in this conversation. And I really wish that we would push back on that. Even when people call people who are minority, when they call them racist, they should say, you're an idiot. You're a racist. You shouldn't even have to say, well, I'm not a racist because of XYZ. It's like, no, you're an idiot. You're only using this as a tactic to come against me, or because you don't have an argument, so you're gonna throw out whatever you want to damage my character, therefore damaging my reputation. And that's not a winning strategy. And I love that you brought that up, Vince, because that's incredibly an intelligent observation. Let's talk about Afghanistan real quick. I wasn't really big on us going down there in the first place. I honestly feel like we went to Afghanistan and Iraq on false pretenses. I have my theories about 9/11 and some sketchy stuff that I feel like that the government either knew about or whatever the case may be, but we went over there and I felt like that we stayed over there for 20 years, 21 years or so. We're going to have to stay over there now. And one of the people who super chatted just a minute ago made an incredible observation of saying that it's worth us to stay there and make sure we protect these people and control that region, because everybody knows, and you can see it, it's clear as the noonday sun, that China is going to fill that vacuum. China is going to control the natural resources and control that region. And that's going to be another step in the wrong direction for America. What do you guys think about Afghanistan? And then we'll talk about, or at least the American approach to Afghanistan, and then we'll talk about Creepy Joe's response to it and why it's incredibly dangerous for America.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think that our big problem in Afghanistan has been that we don't really have a clear goal in mind as to what we are doing. See, initially after 9/11, the common consensus basically was, okay, now it is our job to take out the people who did 9/11, which was Osama bin Laden, which was Al-Qaeda. We did that. Within the span of a few years, Al-Qaeda was not a significant force in Afghanistan. About 10 years ago now, we managed to get Osama bin Laden. But the problem, I think, essentially has been that essentially right after we did that, the goalposts shift. Our goals shift to basically trying to build a Western style democracy in Afghanistan. That's part of the problem, is our goal has been to nation build, not to just take out an enemy, not just to win the war, but to build up the nation of Afghanistan into this like globalist neoliberal democracy that, a lot of our elites are trying to set up around the world. And that is something I think that has always been destined to fail. Let's just take the point of democracy to begin with. People, I think, need to understand that governmental systems do not arise out of nowhere. They arise out of like centuries of history and culture and societal consensus, right? So you look at something like the US Constitution and the system we set up. It is true that it was sort of revolutionary for its time, but it's also important to consider that we were a population as the 13 colonies who had lived under English common law, somewhat of a parliamentary system, a lot of state legislatures for a lot of years, right? So the sort of concept of a republic, the concept of political democracy, even for us, and we could also say it barely works here nowadays, but for us, right? It was something that we had kind of been used to for a long time. You look at Afghanistan, you're talking first about a population that is not ethnically or culturally or anything really united. It's kind of a colonial borders drawn country. It's not like there's not really a common Afghan identity to begin with, which makes it hard to set up a centralized government government at all. But you also look at the fact that it's not a population, obviously, who has historically dealt with democracy or like Western Enlightenment values or any of this stuff. And so I think it was absolutely delusional to say, we're going to go in here, we're going to set up democracy, we're going to set up feminism for a population that en masse doesn't really want it. I think there's a reason the Taliban stuck around for as long as it did, partially because they had the support of a lot of the local population. And that's something that people don't really want to acknowledge, but it really is true. You cannot run an insurgency like that for 20 plus years without like local support. I think the reality is much of the population of Afghanistan really saw us as foreign invaders. They're not fans of the government we tried to set up there. 99 by Pew Research, 99% of the population of Afghanistan believes in Sharia law. And so we basically tried to set up this globalist experiment in Afghanistan that was absolutely doomed to fail to begin with. And I think, to be fair to Joe Biden, I think a lot of how he did it was a mess. You need to get out our citizens, you need to get out our equipment. But frankly, I think whoever withdrew, it was inevitable that the Taliban were going to retake Afghanistan because, quite frankly, the people of Afghanistan did not want the government we set up. They did not want this American system at all. And I think if we had basically just said, we're going to take out the enemy and leave, we would be a lot better off. But the problem is we said, we're going to take out the enemy and then try to build a new nation out of something that just did not want it. So
yeah, that's I couldn't say it any better than that. What do y'all have to add to that?
And Vince, although you've said basically everything that needs to be said on this topic, I just, I want to build a little bit on what you said. I think, and to keep in mind, to put this into perspective for everybody in the chat, I'm going to be doing that a lot tonight. Afghanistan started before both Vince and I were born, and way before either of us could really make and form opinions and or memories about it. I grew up, one of the earliest news stories I ever remembered was that Osama bin Laden was killed. That should have been it. Osama bin Laden was killed. We vanquished Al-Qaeda. That was when we should have gotten out there. But Barack Obama and the military forces of that time decided, nah, we'll stick around. And that is what happened. And so for the remaining, 6 years that Obama was in office up until 2017, we stayed. We lost lives. We lost money. We lost all sorts of things that we didn't need to lose. Meanwhile, the population there got more and more rowdy. And as Patriot J on Twitter put really well, we got the Taliban down to a really low number, not even our goal, but a really low number. But we stayed there for so long that they were actually able to make new forces, as in have children. Those children grow to war age and then be able to go to war against the same country that stayed in that country, against the same country that stayed in that nation for so long. Our forces were still there, and they were able to grow up and become men and fight us once again after we had killed their fathers. So it was a big mess, stupid thing. We should have left way earlier. And Trump did a good thing. I think he probably should have done it even faster than he did. But he started the process of getting us out there. But unfortunately, the baton was passed to a president that was inept in handling it. And now we have an even worse situation there. It's just the compound failures of different presidencies, whether it's one presidency for not doing anything at all about it, or another presidency for just not being able to steamroll it through fast enough, and then another presidency for just being a kind of presidency. So looking at all that, it's a big mess. And honestly, it shouldn't have been like this. We shouldn't be talking about this. Vince and I should barely know anything about it because it should just be in the history books, not the current day books. And if we're going to wrap it all up into that, it's dumb.
All right. I want to, before you go, ABL, somebody wrote a comment to Vince and said, Vince, you are wrong. We were not there to nation build. We were there to take out terrorists and keep them at bay. What is your response to that?
I would say that's kind of what you think was happening, but we absolutely were there to nation build. We set up this new government in Afghanistan. We put in a lot of money trying to build up Afghan infrastructure, all this stuff. You look at kind of our imposition of Western style culture and government with what we were doing there. We absolutely were trying to nation build. George Bush essentially outright stated this back when he was president. So I would agree we shouldn't have been trying to nation build, right? We should have approached it the same way we did a lot of the proxy wars during the Cold War and say, no, we don't really care how Afghanistan runs their country. We're just here to fight this enemy. We're just here to stop this specific problem. That's what we would be doing, but it's not. And you look at a lot of the spending we actually put into Afghanistan. We put a lot of money into not military, but foreign aid for Afghanistan, but infrastructure for Afghanistan. That is absolutely nation building, and the government we set up there did not exist before. We built that government. We built that system. So
it sounded like a great response. And I saw Joe Biden on he was a senator at the time, and he made a comment that his idea of nation building is way more productive, or he thought that was the best way to operate when we do go into these nations, is nation building. outside of nation building, we're wasting our time. It's what Joe Biden said. He was the vice president during Barack Obama's reign in his 8 years of us having our military over in Afghanistan. Semper Fi, thank you so much for the super chat, $100 super chat. Hey, B. Tatum, hope all is well in Arizona. Stay safe, and God bless. What do you got to say, ABL?
Now, as far as Afghanistan, there's a lot to that. There's a lot of other countries involved. It's not just the U.S. that's there. A lot of other countries were there as well, quote unquote, occupying it, helping us, helping the Afghans, helping themselves. China is there. Afghanistan borders China. I don't know if you guys knew. Pakistan is also involved. Pakistan is involved with Taliban, but we didn't go to Pakistan and really invade them. So why are we in Afghanistan only? It's a lot of different reasons. The whole opium thing is not necessarily it. I mean, it is, but the opium had been going on for a long time before we got there. I think the reason why the opium trade was protected and boomed under us is because what other economy do they have in Afghanistan? If we go there and we bomb them and there's no other economy to really have, well, you got to have something. So they protected the opium for them to be able to get money from that. And they said they tried to get them to grow other crops, going back to the whole nation building thing. Oh, you should grow tobacco and stuff. No. Let's do the opium and keep it there. And then that kind of caused the opioid crisis in America. But hey, be over there doing our job, protecting it. So what if we have any kind of unintended consequences? And then there's also rare earth minerals. China's involved because they have the monopoly on rare earth minerals. So all your tech imports, the cell phones and whatnot, Afghanistan, also Africa, other parts of the world, we're over there for a variety of reasons. The military contracts, big money. We spent a lot of money, 2.3 trillion with a T, $2.3 trillion. The so-called president of Afghanistan fled with, 2.3 trillion. The so-called president fled with like $170 million in cash, in American dollars, in physical paper cash, and left a bunch of more money in the country to just whoever wants to go to the compound and take, they can have it. The whole thing was a mess, and I think people knew that from the very beginning. It was never going to go well. They're trying to train the Afghans. These guys can't even do jumping jacks. They're smoking heroin, hashish. It was a big mess. They knew it wasn't going to work. They knew they had to have some kind of military there. And what Joe Biden did was a big-time dumpster fire. If Trump was there, he would have still left. But it's a matter of, okay, rather than having the military leave first and leaving the civilians behind, leaving the interpreters, we promised the interpreters, hey, we'll take care of you. We won't abandon you. Rather than doing stuff like that, okay, get everybody out. The American citizens first and foremost. Anybody that we helped, that we said we're going to get them out and then get the military out and keep the air support, because that's what was keeping the Taliban back. But let's not have it be over there for the terrorism only, because if it's about that, then we'd be invading Iran right now. We'd be invading Pakistan right now, because these two nations are funding it and also straight delivering the terrorists to other parts of the world, to the so-called Palestine and to Afghanistan and everywhere else in the country. I mean, in the world, pardon me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, America is funny, man, because I love this country, but we be doing some dirt, man. I'm not gonna be lie. We have a vested interest. Even when we're looking at the humanitarian perspective and what we did in Afghanistan, you got to go underneath that. You got to say, well, what did our politicians gain from that? What are special interest groups gaining from us being in war for 20 years? Who made the most money from us being in war in Afghanistan and when we were in Iraq for 20 years? What was gained? And I feel like that these politicians be doing dirty deals with different governments to keep us over there for a particular reason. Now, I don't know, they want to pull us out because they don't have any financial gain, or because, Biden has sold us out to China and China told him that he need to pull the troops out so they can take over. I mean, I could be a conspiracy theorist, but that's some of the philosophy that I see. I want to jump on this real quick. Thomas said, look up the CDC consideration for humanitarian camps. Now, I don't know if you guys can touch on that. I don't know much about that. I kind of looked it up over here on the side. They said that it's a fact check. They supposedly fact checked Candace Owens and fact checked Paul Joseph Watson, who claimed that this green zone or high risk individuals can go to this camp. Have you guys researched that at all? Anybody on the panel? No, not really. So supposedly the CDC have on their website that they want to create these humanitarian camps, or there's a concept of a humanitarian camp It's hard to. I would have to come back to this subject.
I mean, we've all been talking about the FEMA camps. Now that's something fun to talk about. I saw this amazing meme that said, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" And it's like the little thought bubble, and it said a FEMA camp, and it's like, I mean, hey, it's true, right? I mean, imagine the children that they were 5 or 4 years old during the beginning of this whole COVID boom. All they ever know is going to school through some computer. They don't know how to read because it's impossible to learn how to read off of a computer screen with nobody there to really guide you through it. They've only gone to school in person with masks on. I mean, it's such insane madness that the thought of a CDC FEMA camp doesn't even seem that far off. That's where American culture is right now. That level of restriction of freedom, that level of tyranny, doesn't even seem like that wild of a thought anymore.
So I'm gonna read a couple quotes from this article, and this is, I mean, you can Google it. Reuters is fact checking Candace Owens and saying that their complaints that these humanitarian camps are not concentration camps or FEMA camps like conspiracy theorists are saying. But I'm gonna read a couple quotes, and I'm gonna try not to be out of context. Anybody that's watching this, you can go read it for yourself. It said the document presents consideration for the perspective of the United States Central CDC for implementing the shielding approach in humanitarian settings as outlines and guideline or guidance documents focused on camps, displaced populations in low resource settings. And I'm gonna go down a little bit. It says discussion reference guideline released by the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine in March of 2020, which noted people living in camp-like settings are particularly vulnerable to outbreaks of disease like COVID-19 due to overcrowding, poor access to water and sanitation, and limited access to health services. And then it goes down to implementing of this approach will involve careful planning, adding resources, strict adherence, and strong multi-sector coordinations. So pretty much what they're doing is saying that these, and I'm just paraphrasing, y'all read it for yourself, that this humanitarian idea or green zones or places that they want to set up and for high-risk individuals, or if people are in these settings, they want to control the settings. And to me, maybe people think FEMA camps are shipping you in a train somewhere. More so, this could be them coordinating efforts in a certain demographic to create the camp where you live. You don't have to travel there. They designate this zone as what they would consider attempting to be a green zone or a humanitarian zone. They take over that zone and they quarantine you in this zone. And then they tell you what you can eat, what you can do, what you can't do. To me, it's very similar to what people describe as a FEMA camp. And based on all the things that I know about our government and the things that I've seen, it's not far-fetched to believe that our government will slowly, methodically put us in a position that we are subject to them and they control our lifestyles. I mean, it's very clear to me that could happen. What do you guys
either take your 9th booster shot or go to the FEMA camp. That's all I've got to say.
Right, because they're saying people that are in these high risk areas is what they're saying it is, and they call it overcrowding, poor access. I mean, they can call it what they want to call it. Saying that you are a super spreader and putting you on blast if you don't get the vaccine, just to find out that the vaccine doesn't protect you from getting the virus, doesn't protect you from being symptomatic of the virus, and don't protect you from spreading it. Now, what do they have to say? So they can come up with any solution that they want to put you in a box that they can then control you in. I was in New Orleans 2 days ago, or a day ago. I can't remember. My days are mixed up. I was in New Orleans speaking at a particular event. And in New Orleans, the mayor said that you cannot go to a restaurant without being vaccinated in the city of New Orleans. And it's like, so we had to eat outside of New Orleans. But that's the first step to tyranny. How are you going to tell a person or make a person be vaccinated? The government is from the top down is telling you to be vaccinated, but the vaccine is not even approved by the FDA. It's an experimental drug, pretty much, and we're the guinea pigs. And I think that's atrocious. But that's the first sign of government tyranny, in my personal opinion.
And you know what? One thing about the it's not approved yet. It's still experimental. I think when they do approve it, it's going to be kind of rushed through because the military are talking about they're trying to make their troops get it mandatory. You got to get the vaccine, but they can't because of federal law exists. It says you cannot give your military experimental drugs by mandate. You can't do it. It's illegal to do that. So they got to have the drug become approved. Now, if they already said, okay, we aim for September the 15th. My question is, how does the military know when a drug is going to be approved? How would they set a date so specific, September the 15th? How would they know that? It doesn't take a long time for it to be approved. how do we know what the process is? Is there a certain deadline? How is it going to be a deadline for a drug to be approved? I mean, don't we need clinical trials and things of this nature? How is it going to be approved in like 2-3 weeks? So if it does get approved, I wouldn't even trust that, because it might just be a thing that they're pushing through corruption, things that we know exist in the government, just to make it to where they can mandate it to the military, so we don't violate a Geneva Convention and things of that nature that says you cannot experiment on the military. And they did that before, back in 2011 with the anthrax vaccine, and that was a whole big disaster, all kind of lawsuits and everything else. People got injured from that vaccine. So if you see this thing get approved, I wouldn't trust it at all, because there's a lot of bureaucracy and red tape behind that.
Yeah, not government. I mean, think about this. It's a conflict of interest. I'm gonna let you go, Vince, here in a second. It's a conflict of interest, right? The government is pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing mandates, and the government is the one that's supposed to approve this, right? It's a government agency. So it's a conflict of interest. If the government has already made statements that they're going to force you to do this, although they shouldn't be able to because it's not approved, what makes you think the government isn't going to also approve something so they can validate what they're already trying to do to you? Vince, go ahead.
I mean, let me say this as carefully as possible, but I think, peacefully speaking, people need to really start becoming defiant to this stuff. I mean, that's really the point that we're at, and I understand a lot of people are in difficult positions, because it's like, do I get fired, or do I just comply with this mandate, or like, how am I supposed to not be able to eat at a restaurant anywhere in my city? But quite frankly, a big reason why our politicians keep pushing the needle on this stuff is because they sort of expect a certain compliance rate out of the population, because they see that it's like, even if the majority of people are kind of pissed at the new mandate, in the end, they kind of cave and go along with it. That's why they are doing it. I think ultimately we need to kind of, peacefully speaking, I don't want to get you taken off YouTube, but peacefully speaking, we need to basically draw a line in the sand. We need to basically say, we're done with this. We need restaurants to say, we're just not following this vaccine mandate. We're not going to enforce it. Same thing with police officers, regular population, all that stuff, because ultimately that's kind of how it is, right? Politicians still will somewhat answer to the public outrage. It's usually the case. I mean, we love, like, someone like Ron DeSantis is a great governor, but I think it's also true that a big reason he's been so hawkish against these COVID restrictions is because he knows that he has a base that is that takes this really seriously and is going to hold him accountable if he really caves on it, right? And so that's what we need in these other states. We need to basically rise up peacefully, right? And not violently, but like civil disobedience. We need to kind of push back as a population on our leaders. And I think that's the only thing that's going to make it to stop, because it's not like we have someone in the White House or even someone in a lot of these state governments who's going to stand up for us. We don't have the institutions. We don't have control over, the institutions that could kind of do it for us. I think we as the people basically just have to 30-40%, if we can get to that level, even, I think it'll make enough waves to where they'll kind of back off on it a little bit. But that's the problem. Too many people are going along with it. So they're just like, they'll just go full steam ahead, right?
Right. And it's like the Civil Rights Act, Civil Rights Movement. I don't think people agreed with segregation. I don't think a lot of people agreed to that. They probably thought it was stupid. But once it started to be implemented, people went along with it. They just kept going along with it. And it took somebody like Martin Luther King and people that were a part of the Civil Rights Movement to peacefully resist what was going on. And then it caused the government to then change, because the people run the government. The government don't run the people. It's we, the people. We give the authority to the government to govern over us. If we don't believe that the government or the governing body is doing what they're supposed to do according to the Constitution, then we take the power back from them through elections, through impeachment, all of these different things, and I hate to see that so many people are acquiescing to some of these mandates. Every time I go to the airport, it blows my mind. I am the only person, I can't confirm or deny if this is true or not, but I'm the only person.
He's gonna get no-fly listed.
I drink my water the whole time I walk through the airport. I don't wear a mask. I do not wear my mask in the airport. I wear it to get on the airplane, but I'm not going to muzzle myself. Not one person
Brandon,
is taking off a mask.
You should see how far I may or may not get in Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport when I go maskless. You should see. And then Vince, real quick, just to tag onto your point, it really does take a movement of the people, a movement of the people standing up against the government, a movement of the people standing up against culture. There's a lot of songs out there, a lot of just cultural movements that are like every time you play it, it's like, oh yeah, by the way, make sure you get this, make sure you get that. And just, just to pull a free plug, Brandon, everybody on the panel, I'm actually dropping a song tonight called, like I said earlier, Vax Rebel, which is supposed to advance that cultural movement of not really being quote unquote anti-vax as all these social media platforms and media platforms have the freedom to kick you off for doing, but being more so pro bodily autonomy when it comes to this completely experimental thing. And I'm not even going to hinge it on FDA approval or not. I don't trust any of these government administrations to decide anything for me anymore. And I think there's plenty of other people who are going to listen to this song and then listen to the movement that are going to agree with that. And so if you guys want to check that out, definitely make sure you look it up.
Check it out. We'll put some links there.
Yeah. Midnight.
At midnight, we'll put the links there. Listen, we are in America. We have a right to question things that are questionable. It is not clear, and everybody can see this. You can look at any video. It is not clear what the government expects of the people. It was 2 weeks to slow the spread. We weren't supposed to get rid of the virus. We were supposed to slow the initial spread. You weren't supposed to wear a mask. Now you're supposed to wear a mask. Then you're supposed to wear 2 or 3 masks. Then you're supposed to social distance. And then you have to get the vaccine. Now you got to wear a mask if you have the vaccine. Now you need a booster. And then somebody like Dr. Fauci is in an email saying that the cloth mask that you wear, not the N95, but cloth masks that you wear don't work. So what are you telling the American people about what's going on? It doesn't make sense that you go to a restaurant, sit down, take the mask off, but you go to a classroom, sit down, you have to wear a mask for the entire day at school, even though you're social distancing. I mean, this is incredibly complicated stuff that make the American citizens say, look, it's my freedom. If I want to get sick, let me get sick. If you don't want to get sick, take a vaccine. They don't do this with the flu. If you get the flu in America, you die. Or you stay sick, or you take, you go to the doctor and you take the antibiotics. They don't make you take a vaccination for the flu. They don't tell you can't go to school if you don't test negative for the flu. They've never done this. And the flu has killed hundreds of thousands of people over the last several years. And then they expect us to believe that the flu is gone. How is it gone, Dr. Fauci? Because people are walking around with masks on, and the flu is gone because of masks. Flu and COVID-19 are both viruses, and the viral molecules are going to go straight through the mask. Either one. It's okay.
And yet saying this 5 months ago would have had you kicked off of every platform. It's insane.
Hey, how about this though? They say, okay, you got to put your children, your little kids, 7, 8 years old, in the mask in the classroom while they're distanced, and they have next to no chance of dying from this thing, according to the CDC. I don't want to say nothing wrong because everybody, when they get, they're not going to die from the virus.
So it's a high probability that they will recover, they will not get it, or they will not die from it. It's a high probability that it will not happen.
Check this out. But then southern border, where they pack like sardines under a bridge, walking across, no mask, and there's more than one virus out there. There's more than one virus. You understand what I'm saying? Like, they're bringing all types of other viruses, and they don't have any vaccines. I'm talking about from childhood. The shots we get as little kids, they don't have any of that. They're coming from all over the world: Africa, Asia, Europe, South America, even some Canadians. They're saying they found a white Canadian at the southern border because it's easy to get in. You couldn't get in through Detroit or Toronto, where he's coming through. You got to go through the southern border and get in that way. Like, you have Mexicans that have, their Mexican citizenship and also a U.S. visa that can't go drive to the U.S. 2 hours away because the port of entry is officially closed. But if you are an illegal alien, you can get a free ride to wherever you go. So it's like, what's the point? Why drive and spend my gas money? All I gotta do is walk up there or catch a ride and then get a free plane ride wherever I want to go. It's crazy. The whole thing is stupid.
On the little kids' point,
they tell you one thing and then they do something else. Go ahead, boss.
Go ahead.
I think on the little kids' point, I mean, it is really just, you look at how ghoulishly, I go on Twitter, it's just insane how ghoulishly obsessed they are with putting masks on 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old kids. It really is straight up child abuse what they're doing. But you kind of look at what's going to be the result of this, whether it's intentional, which I think it is, or you maybe even if it's not, still it's going to be the end result is the same. think about what you were doing to the social development of so many young kids. So first of all, you've kept them online for like a whole year essentially. So, and like, we're not talking necessarily so much even about high school or college kids right now. We're talking about like young little kids.
Yeah.
We know, just like with math, just like with English, with social development, it's kind of like a steps to the ladder, right? And so if you miss one, you're behind. Everyone's basically behind. A lot of these kids probably socially are screwed up. I bet you it's going to be the case. I bet you when you look at these kids older, there's going to be a lot of social anxiety, kind of social disorders, right? But then on top of that, now you've kept them online for a year. Now for the next year, you're forcing them to not see each other's faces, which, contrary to what the American Society Academy of Pediatrics tried to say, it's very common sense, and I'm pretty sure you can prove seeing each other's faces, really hearing each other, because, you know, you can barely really hear people in mass. That's very important actually to like social development, right? To socialization, actually seeing what people look like, seeing their faces, seeing their lips move. And now all of that is being thrown out the window. And so I think you're going to see, and you could argue this is kind of what the system wants in the long run, is a bunch of like socially awkward, isolated, sort of loner kids that are going to grow up to teens, going to become adults. And then we kind of know that sort of demographic is really the type that would really be the most on board with leftism, because you look at who most of the socialists are, most of the communists are, you know, they're not exactly
very depressed people.
Yeah, they're depressed people, they're loner people, they're awkward people. And so you're actually breeding a demographic through this child abuse that is going to really be very easy to control by the system, I would say, later down the line.
Yeah, and then think just people got to just use common sense. You got the kids in the mass for, I don't know, 6 hours a day or whatever. When they go home, what happens? They're around their entire family. Probably nobody's wearing a mask. They're going out to jump at the jumpy place, or whatever the case may be, and they're getting exposed. And then they come to school and they think wear a mask is going to help. Brother, they're going to get sick, and they're going to come to school sick, and they're going to touch each other, and they're going to pull their mask down to eat.
It's a regular part of school too. Getting sick, it's like a regular part of going to school. I think people forgot that.
How else are you supposed to develop your immune system as a young child?
Hey, I got nieces. Them masks be ridiculous. Like them masks, I mean, they can walk by themselves. Put it to you like that.
Bro, I'm gonna be honest. I don't wash my mask. You know what I'm saying? And when I travel, sometimes I use the same mask to go to the airport, get off the airport. I save it, put it on my face when I go back. And it's like, you cannot tell me that is not creating some type of germs or some type of another respiratory illness that you're going to end up having. Because just imagine if you did get something in your system, you're not effectively breathing it out and getting fresh oxygen in. It's just building up in that mask, and you are now inhaling those particles. You have to say you're inhaling some of the particles that come out of your mouth. And so if it's anything that can create germs or anything on that mask, it's going to go right into your lungs. You're going to inhale it. It's going to go into your bloodstream. I mean, I don't understand. The inconsistency is my thing, right? I mean, if they came out and was straight across the board, I say, cool. They're inconsistent. Flying an airplane is the biggest hypocritical thing I've ever seen in my life. These people are coming from a state that's completely open. Every day of the week, I'd never wear a mask. I go all around the state, go everywhere. I don't wear a mask. But supposedly, if I get to the airport, I'm not going to expose people. I'm flying on the airplane for 4 hours, right next to another guy.
Or one straight to everybody's together.
Circulated air,
and that's fine if you got the mask on. It made no sense.
It's crazy to me. I want to jump subjects real quick because we got a lot to discuss. I want to talk a little bit about the idea of systemic racism in America. I spoke about this in my speech, and I just want to know what you guys think, because I'm confident that most of us agree. However, we're all free thinkers. We can think for ourselves. To believe that America is systemically racist, meaning that there is some systems in place that create a perpetuating force against minorities and push white supremacy, I think is the biggest load of crap that I've ever heard in my life. I think America is probably one of the least racist countries that exist. What do you guys think about America being systemically racist? Is this a racist nation? Let me know what your thoughts are.
Now, as far as that, the thing is, people look at this incorrectly, in my opinion. The people that are screeching about systemic racism, all this and that, the BLM type, the leftist types, they're incorrect. What they're talking about is not really real. But there is some racism when you're talking about the left, what they're doing with critical race theory, trying to brainwash children into believing that they're inferior if they're a black person, And if they're a white person, they're inferior. It's weird. It's like they talk about how racist things are, while at the same time they're perpetuating racism. When you're talking about college admissions, there are certain things put into place to discourage whites and Asians from going to, let's say, an Ivy League school to put more blacks and Hispanics. But those that want to talk about systemic racism, they think it's the other way around. They think that it's needed. They think that they need to have more blacks and Hispanics because it's racist, but really they're doing racist things to get more blacks and Hispanics in there rather than just performing better, having better test scores. They want to put them in there through a racist way. So there are people trying to fight to get racism in there, but they're the main ones talking about how racist the country is. They're incorrect. What they're doing is exactly what they say is going on. That's not really going on. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. Go ahead, Chandler.
I think systemic racism is a lot a pandemic in the ways that COVID-19 is, in the fact that it is spread from person to person, and it usually doesn't mean much. It usually doesn't mean anything, but it is encouraged and abetted by the media to become something that it really isn't. It is not dangerous. You know, every single person has certain ideas, certain stereotypes, and that's a normal thing. That is what we call systemic racism or societal racism, whatever you want to call it. And that does indeed seep its way into administrations, into governments. That's just how things work. That's just people being people. But the media finds a way to make it, and whether this is administered through the social media, or even in schools and such, CRT, they are sort of instigating this crisis that we have, in which whites are either they are hating of their own race, or they are disliking of just this whole race mess, period. And then you have a lot of black people that are especially being manipulated into hating the white race. And so it's sort of being flipped. The script is being flipped, and there's this massive mess of all sorts of races seeing each other as enemies. And this is really specifically within America. This doesn't happen in other nations as far as like inter battles. It's really such an American thing that we're seeing, that all sorts of people are becoming divided. We're not divided under the moniker of American. We have African American, Asian American, but when you think about a white American, you just think American. That's a bad thing. That's a bad thing, that the idea and society of America is being divided by class, divided by race, and it is being pushed further and further by the media, and it is being pushed on our children as well with critical race theory. And you have to wonder, and you can see what parents are doing. Parents are now pulling their children out of public schools and placing them in homeschooling at a highly ascending rate, which is, I think, a really good thing. But you have to then look at the parents who simply can't afford to do that. They're both out there working constantly. The two parents, you would hope, are out there working constantly. They don't have the money, they don't have the resources, they don't have the time to let their children be homeschooled. And so those kids that are unfortunate enough to have to go to the school, wear the mask, they probably don't know how to read very well because, like I said, they spent a whole year looking at a screen instead of having a teacher. And so they're very susceptible to be taught this madness. And we're seeing it all across the nation. Some people are doing something against it, some people aren't. And it's going to be a really sad thing to see how it affects our youth in the future, because they're going to grow up not only with the idea that, you know, being face to face, my mouth is dangerous, but they're also going to be discussing the idea and believing the idea that certain skin colors are dangerous too. Whiteness is dangerous according to Koch. This person is dangerous for this reason. It's a really terrible thing, and it's going to get even worse if we don't at least have a big movement against it.
Yeah, where's the hearing impaired community? You know, like I studied sign language when I was in college, and you know, it is shameful that the mandate of wearing a mask. What do you do for people who are hard of hearing? A lot of people that I know who are hard of hearing or deaf, they read lips. It is disrespectful for you to cover your mouth and talk without a person who's deaf in the room. Is disrespectful because they need to reach your lips. So a lot of people who are deaf that cannot do sign, or a person does not know sign language, they a lot of times can figure out what you're saying by reading your lips. When I was on the police department, we were prohibited for handcuffing people who are deaf behind their backs, because the only form of communication is with their hands. If they need help and their hands are behind their back, they cannot communicate that to you. So they have to have their hands to be able to be present to sign language or do signs to let you know what they need if they're in distress or whatever the case may be, if their body language doesn't display that. But wearing a mask, where's the protected class for them? They cannot reach your lips, and it's a shame that they're pushing that. Stacey Abrams is trending on Twitter right now, right? They said she's #1 trending. So I looked it up, and Stacey Abrams is trending. Somebody said it's the dumbest thing in the world. I guess they said 98% of Georgians have registered to vote. The slogan is that 98% of people who, I said 95% of citizens over 18 signed up to vote. Now,
oh my God, this state is going to get stolen.
You know, I pretty much thought, maybe I'm wrong. I thought you have to be
gosh.
18 to vote. So to say 95% of citizens over 18 sign up to vote, I mean, I'm not familiar. Am I wrong? But you have to be 18 to vote anyway. So what's the percentage or the number under 18? What does that even mean?
Okay, so I am a person in Georgia. If you look at the city of Atlanta, you drive by, you're going to see a lot of people that you don't think are going to be registered to vote. If I'm keep it honest with you. But honestly, in Georgia, oh man, I live in Georgia currently, and I'm working personally with some campaigns here in Georgia to take this state back, because we're currently teetering upon the edge of either being a tyranny state or a free state, because we have a lame duck quote unquote Republican governor here that is allowing each school district to let their kids go back with masks. That is allowing these vaccine mandates with Wellstar, who is going to be kicking people out, firing nurses from their jobs if they choose not to get the vaccine, including pregnant nurses who shouldn't be taking it because it can kill your baby. That has happened. And sure, you could say, oh, Chandler, this is anecdotal. If there's even a possibility of it happening for a pregnant woman, you should not endanger your child for any reason whatsoever. And so to see that 95% of, and I don't know where that data is coming from, I'll have to do a little bit more research into it, but to see that is something, I am so scared, because you have to imagine that 95% number, and give it a couple years and it will trickle down to our nurses with those pregnant children. That 95% number is the teetering between that unborn child having a life and not having a life. And it's so scary to think that this state could be stolen in such a demonstrably obvious way.
Can I make a point real quick on the whole systemic racism discussion?
Go ahead, Vince.
I think this is going to be kind of a bold statement, but I think really when you look at it, it's true. I think the American system, a lot of people are scared to say this, but the American system is either systemically racist or close to becoming systemically racist against white people. And like a lot of people I know are very scared to say that. It's kind of like a controversial thing to say, but you look at kind of the reality of the situation. The mainstream narrative in essentially every single major institution, pop culture, academia, corporate America, you name it, is actively anti-white. Like it is actively hostile to white people, right? And this obviously is going to manifest itself in policy as well as just kind of social consensus toward that group of people. And we can see this going on. We can see this going on with critical race theory, which is anti-white hatred, most simply defined, kind of infiltrating all the institutions to becoming mainstream in all the institutions. And so I would say also that it's very concerning to me, because obviously, white people are the majority in America right now, but we also know based on demographic trends that white people in the next few decades are going to become the minority in America. What essentially happens at that point, right? What essentially happens if these ideas continue to spread, which quite frankly, at this rate, they are going to, they're just going to become more prominent. It's just going to become extremely, extremely mainstream. What actually happens when they are the minority in America? What's going to happen to them? And so you look at something like South Africa and sort of the treatment towards whites in that country. I would say that you should not even discount the possibility of that sort of being the future of America, right? If we don't really put a stop to this. So
I agree. Donald Trump Jr. His tweet is trending on here, but I think that you're 100% right. I mean, if you want to say something is systemically racist, it's becoming more and more systemically racist against white people. I mean, my God, that people can openly say white people are the devil, and that's accepted rhetoric. People can openly say the white man, I mean, the current white people are responsible for slavery. I mean, that is rhetoric that's out of control, and if you ask me, I'm gonna be honest about this. If you ask me, who's the biggest threat to black people in America, is other black people. Who's the biggest threat to black people in America for the last 30, 40 years is other black people. I mean, even 60 years. If you go back 60 years, after Martin Luther King died, the race hustling pimps took over and became the detriment to black America. I mean, the fact that Stacey Abrams is trending and a lot of black people are supporting that, it just confuses me as to why do black people in America still support Democrats? That's crazy to me. Go ahead, Chandler.
Yeah,
Vince,
I mean,
your camera's not working.
Yeah, look at what Joe Biden said back in what was it? I forget the exact year, but I think it was 2012 or so. Might have been a little after that. Joe Biden was speaking to a congregation, a church congregation of black people, and the very first thing that came to his mind was, obviously this. And so you know what he said to them? Republicans, if you elect them, are going to put you back in chains. That should show you right there what candidates, Democrat candidates like Joe Biden, truly think of every face you see on this panel right now, except for Vince. And once he comes back, but that's what Democrats truly think of a black person, in chains. That was the first thing that came to his mind. Keep in mind, he's an old fogey. He's the type of guy that says that.
You ain't black.
And he's the type of guy hanging out, speaking at the funeral for Robert Byrd, having, you know, avowed Klan members by his side. He is that guy. And so to see him say those types of things, even in an age, and it may seem like a long time ago at this point, but you know, it wasn't that long ago, 2012 or whenever he said that, is less than a decade ago, or just about a decade ago, he said that America was not anywhere near where it was when he was born, as far as racism or anything like that. And yet he was still saying something like, Republicans are going to put you back in chains. I can guarantee you with 100% certainty that not a member of that congregation had been in any sort of chains. And in that context, he was talking about slave chains. Now, prison chains, that could be something. And we know for dang sure that would have been Joe Biden, if anybody, considering he wrote the dang bill that would have put those congregation members themselves, or perhaps their sons that had been caught with small amounts of drugs back in the days. They weren't killing anybody. They weren't harming anybody, but they were thrown in prison for 20, 15, 10 years, a long time that they had to see their children grow up without them. We saw that happen over and over again. So no, Joe Biden, Republicans are not going to put us back in chains. You would be the one putting us in chains, and you would be the one putting us right back in chains if he got elected. And you know what? You know what happened? He did get elected. And you know what's happening? I think we're going to start seeing people in chains again if we don't fix it up soon.
Oh, people are in mental chains as we speak. They're in mental chains.
Actually, that's it. That's dang right. I didn't even look at it like that. That's so true.
And let me say this: Donald Trump Jr. is trending on Twitter because supposedly the dude that had the bombs at in DC, supposedly he shared. You can't make this stuff up. He shared a video of Donald Trump Jr. the day before he decided to have bombs in front of DC, and now they are trending because they want Donald Trump Jr. to be banned and saying he's a domestic terrorist.
Oh my God!
As Stacey Abrams is trending from having 95% or 98% of Georgians, registered to vote. The propaganda that is spread. I don't know why I feel like Republicans are losing the propaganda game. We are taking an L, man. It's Trump Jr. I met the man. It's Trump Jr. the domestic terror. Shut the front door. You know, nobody said nothing when Bernie supported went and shot up those Republicans, at that baseball game. They not holding his head to the fire, but some lunatic decides to share a video that Donald Trump Jr. made, and he's a lunatic. They want to associate that with him. Although Donald Trump Jr. didn't tell him to do it, didn't insinuate, didn't go do it himself. They're saying he's vicariously responsible. But Joe Biden's not vicariously responsible for what happened in Afghanistan. So all these American lives that are going to die, all these Christians that are going to die, all these women that's going to be abused. Is it not his fault? Anyway, I digress.
And see, the problem with the propaganda war, the cultural war, is that the left, they own most of the avenues that the average person is going to pay attention to. Yeah. They own the mainstream media, they own the newspapers, they own radio. Like, we are going to do research, we're going to go online, and we're able to think for ourselves and not just be led any kind of way. But the average person is not us. They'll see something on CNN. If they see it more than one time, they believe it. Really, if they see it one time, they believe it. That's enough. So when they say January 6th is the equivalent of 9/11, they believe it. Although it's demonstrably not. If you took 5 seconds to just look at both of them and think about it, it's not true. But since they say it on CNN, that's got to be true. Brian Stelter said it. Oh, he's a great journalist. He's excellent. He is
reliable sources.
That's right. Reliable sources. Exactly. And they believe that stuff. So a part of our job is to kind of break away the average normie's way of thinking and think a little bit more for themselves rather than just being led by the mainstream media wherever the mainstream media want them to go.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think the problem we have is essentially that basically I would say 60 to 80% of the reality, 60 to 70, 80% of any population actually doesn't really think for themselves. And I think this is true of like any nation. Essentially, the majority of people in a nation will essentially follow whatever the mainstream narrative is. Now, the problem is you look at every single, like ABL said, every single institution that controls the mainstream narrative, the media, the pop culture, the academia, all these things are obviously controlled by our political enemies, and we have essentially no power in those institutions. And so part of the problem is like, yeah, we can kind of that's part of the problem is like when people come over to conservatism, what do they always say? That's like, oh, I did the research for myself, right? But that's not the reality of most people. And so we can do these debates online. We can like post things. We can try to red pill people, whatever. But the reality of the situation is, if over the next few decades, we as conservatives don't try to make a concerted effort to reclaim these types of important institutions that really set the narratives across the country, if we don't make it our goal to either infiltrate or create new institutions that will be able to drive sort of the propaganda machine, but drive it for good, not for bad, we'll basically be doomed. We'll kind of always be on the losing side of this unless we really take the power, not necessarily in the government, right? Because elections are one thing, but like in the cultural institutions that really do set the narratives, we're going to be screwed until we figure out that, hey, this is what we need to be doing.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy, this propaganda that I'm looking at. I'm just scrolling through Twitter and I'm looking at all of these Donald Trump Jr. references. And the funny thing is that Donald Trump Jr. came out and criticized Joe Biden for being ignorant in what he did in Afghanistan. And then simultaneously, he's now, trending. Well, impeach Biden. Harris now is trending too, to a smaller degree, but he's now trending saying that he was responsible for some lunatic wanting to blow up the Capitol building. It's crazy to me how the propaganda moves so swiftly. Donald Trump Jr., they say he's a racist. But let me get back to this point. I'm confused at why minorities support Democrats so heavily. I want to believe that minorities aren't completely brainwashed enough or stupid enough to believe this stuff. I mean, what do you guys think? It's like, even though there's a lot of, and I would say I can speak for African Americans, or at least speak on behalf of my perception of what African Americans are doing, although I see people waking up all the time, although I see people, coming across with the hot sauce, 95% of the voting African American people in this country are completely brainwashed. 95, just the fact that they vote 90-some% for one side. That's just dumb. Just voting. Even if you voted 90-some% for Republicans, I think that'll be, kind of a brainwashing method, because you can't give all put all your eggs in one basket. Therefore, the other side will not take you seriously. I mean, what do you guys think?
I'm gonna tell you what's going on with that. There's a few things. First of all, you have societal pressure, you got family pressure, and a lot of people are ignorant. A lot of these people that grow up in these areas where there's no real education, they're not being taught anything. But what they are being taught is what a lot of us, especially Black folks, will be taught: Democrats are the good people, Republicans race, which was the other way around. But
it should be.
Right. Republicans are the racist, Democrats are the good people. We vote Democrat, and this family is what we do. And there's never any questioning of it when you were a kid to your parents. Because when you want to ask questions, well, why is that so? Why is that so? You're not going to get an answer. You might mess around and get a whooping for even asking when you're a small child. So you just grow up doing that, and then it becomes a societal thing. It becomes your peer group. They're all one way. Friends, family, teachers, administrators are all one way. TV, everything. All of it just goes toward, well, you got to just vote this way. And then, like I said, there's ignorance going on. We just don't even know anything. When you see some of these man on the street interviews, and they say, hey, who was the first president? Yeah. George Bush. How many continents in the world? They count on their fingers. They don't know. There's ignorance. So they don't even understand what's going on. And a lot of these Democrat-run areas, they want to keep that ignorance there. They don't want to advocate for school choice or homeschool or any kind of alternative method outside of these failing public schools. Out here where I live in Tennessee, a bunch of kids walked out of their school when they went back because of the school's conditions, the physical conditions. We're talking about mold. I mean, you have a whole year off because of the virus, right? You can't fix this school up. You're getting paid $11,000 per student. You can't put a little bit of that into fixing one building of the school up, just maybe. Stuff like that is what keeps a lot of people from understanding the truth, from seeing the truth, the ignorance and social pressure. And of course, the welfare state, that's a big part of the reason why, people become reliant upon the welfare state. They're relying upon their checks and their stamps. So then when Republicans say, hey, we're going to cut that, oh, see, they want to take your stamps, want to take your money away. Really, it's not their money, it's the taxpayers' money. But again, it goes back to the ignorance.
Want to shut down your Obama phone?
Yeah, exactly.
Can I say, I think, I've thought about this a lot, actually. And I think it really boils down even less to a question of policy, more so than it does identity. Because, and I think, you know, there are probably policies that mainstream minorities disagree with Republicans, but I think for the most part, you look at, especially on social issues, you know, most minorities actually tend to be by polls more socially conservative, more traditional on issues, which you would think basically puts them in the more like traditionally conservative Republican camp. I think the issue is, and this is true in the Black community, it's true in Hispanic community, Asian, I think basically every kind of minority community in America, is that there is a lack of a sense of American identity, right? That's sort of the issue here. You know, Black people tend to, in America, it's a common trend. It's like they identify as more like, they identify more with essentially their race than the nation, right? You see this a lot. I've seen people say things like, you know, I'm not an African American, I'm just African, you know, comments like that. This is obviously why they try to push things like Juneteenth, National Independence Day, a Black national anthem, right? This sort of sense of racial separatism from the United States. And you see the same thing, you know, among Hispanics, although maybe it's going to change a little bit, but when you look at some of these voting trends, but you see the same thing among Hispanics, you know, the sort of the concept of La Raza, right? The concept of, and you see most of them are kind of more loyal a lot of times to their countries of origin or their families' countries of origin, and they identify more with that than America, right? And, you know, with Asians, it's a lot of times the same thing. The problem, of course, is that, you know, as a conservative, as Republicans who are sort of the conservative party, the nationalist party, right? We are kind of the party that's like more of the party of America and American identity, whereas obviously we kind of look at the other side. They're more of the globalist party, right? They're more of the anti-American. And when I say anti-American, I talk also about the sense of American identity sort of party, right? And so if you're not identifying really as a solid American, it's going to be very hard. Even if you agree, you know, I'm against abortion, maybe you're like Hispanic and I'm like a Catholic and so I'm very traditional and all this stuff. If you're not identifying as an American, if you're not really buying into the concept that you live in the United States of America, how are you ever really going to come over to our side? Because I think that's kind of the first step before you even get into policy. It's like, no, we identify as Americans. We are patriots. We are nationalists for America. And if you're not on board with that, how do we even ever try to win your vote? So I think that's what needs to really change first and foremost.
Yep. Yeah, I think, I mean, that's an incredible point, incredible observation. You know, something that I don't think I've brought up before is that identity with America. And if you hate America, the party that loves America, and then they deem loving America as being racist, it's almost impossible for you to socially be accepted in that group. And it's crazy to me, man. It is crazy to me. I know that, you know, I kind of grew up being more of a Democrat, and now waking up to what's going on, it's like, how do you not see that it's all brainwashing and propaganda? I mean, the seeing people support Stacey Abrams and Joe Biden. I mean, just the mere fact of the very same white liberal is telling you that white supremacy is the biggest threat to Black America, and that white supremacy is running our country. And yet they go out and vote and elect another white old man who was a part of the systemic oppression of Black people, according to Black people. When you talk about the 94 crime bill, you talk about, you know, someone pushing rhetoric against the civil rights movement. I mean, you got Strom Thurmond, who was a mentor to Joe Biden. You have Joe Biden speaking at the funeral of Robert Byrd, who was a former Ku Klux Klan member. I mean, when you look at those things, you say, how can people be so deceived to then elect another white man? I don't get it. You would think that this would be an election that minorities rise up and say, we need a minority in office. And if you can't provide that for us, we're not going to vote for you. You would think. But instead, they push another white man in the office. And I'm not for racial discrimination. I'm just saying, based on their logic of white supremacy and anti-police, and the white man is holding you down, you know, why would you vote for another white president? They then appoint all these other white people, even the press secretary. They could have put a sister in there. Why? They got a ginger-haired white girl. Like, they could have put a sister in there. They got Kamala Harris, the most unpopular Black person in the 2020 campaign. They put her as vice president. There ain't other Black people that are successful and popular and reasonable than fraudulent Kamala Harris. I do not get it, man. I don't get it.
But you know what? They don't really believe in that racial stuff when it comes down to it. Like, all of that, that's just for show, just for political reasons, to try and get votes and to try and say, hey, we're woke, we're doing the right thing. When it really comes down to it, when they want to put someone in office, when they want to have certain things done, that's not even really important. It's more about money. It's more about control. It's more about, paying back favors and scratching backs and things of that nature. The racial thing is totally irrelevant. And talk about all this black stuff, but when it comes down to it, that goes out the window.
100%. I mean, look at it. What have Democrats? I mean, we could talk about historically, right? The party of the Klan, the party of racism, the party of segregation, the party of, being anti-civil rights movement. I don't think not one Democrat voted in favor of the Civil Rights Act. I mean, some of them voted impartially, no contest, but nobody voted for it. And we had many of them that voted against it. But Democrats historically have never supported black people ever. And think about Joe Biden right now, all these executive orders that he signed and all this stuff. What has he done for black people? I still, to this day, I don't know of anything that Joe Biden has specifically done for the black community. Nothing. And this is the champion president. He's the most popular president in the United States. He's more popular than Barack Obama. And he hasn't even uttered something positive that he is going to do specifically for African-American people. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't even heard of a proposal. When they were running for office, they talking about we're going to look into reparations. I haven't heard the word reparations in any. You look at the script of anything he said or anybody in his administration. Reparations ain't even thought about, and that was a big part of what they ran on.
They said we're going to do a study. When they say that, I'm like, no, they're not going to do it.
It ain't happening.
It's not happening. Anything else to say, oh, we're good on right away. Anything like what's going on right now with the illegal immigration, what they say, no deportations first 100 days. That's exactly what they're doing. They're leaving the border wide open. They said they were going to do that, and they did it. Reparations, we'll look into it. We'll figure it out. Well, that means they're not going to do it. That's what's going on with that.
They know that the black voting bloc is slipping. That's why they're doing less and less to appease black voters. They don't care as much about food stamps and welfare and pushing that anymore. They care about pushing abortion, and they care about pushing the rise in LGBTQ ABCD community. And like Vince said, that these communities that are previously were big handles for the Democrat Party, like the black community, are more socially conservative. They're going to look at that LGBT ABCD stuff. They're going to look at all these, abortion. They're going to look at that, and if they're logical, they're going to be like, all right, hold on. As much as my mom says I should vote for Democrats, and as much as I open up TikTok and it says get out there, register to vote for Kamala Harris or whatever it is, I don't want to do that if they're going to be pushing this kind of stuff. And so then you have to question, well, what are they doing? They're importing new voters, like we have with the border. Even though there's a massive pandemic going on, and there's all sorts of questions about is it safe? They're still letting hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants in per year. And who's footing the bill? Americans are. Black Americans are. And the more that they learn about that, the less they're going to want to vote. But the more that those illegal immigrants that were just let into this country are going to be allowed, and once they get rubber stamped through and allowed into the voting system, because some states want to do that, they're going to be funneled right into those states. They're going to get to do what they want, and that is vote in Democrats. You have to wonder why Brian Kemp down here in Georgia, which is already a teetering state, has opened the doors for refugees from Afghanistan. We don't know who they are. We don't know what they stand for. They could be Taliban. They could be Al-Qaeda, whatever that is anymore. They could be walking right into my home state and do whatever they do. And eventually, once they get rubber stamped to vote, because that's, the whole who can vote thing is getting weaker and weaker. They're fighting against voter ID. They're fighting against us actually securing our elections. And we saw that recently. They're going to get to vote too. And you want to know who they're going to vote for? The people who make sure that they profit. And the way that they profit is getting things from the government. So the gifts that the black community used to get from the government for being the lowest common denominator as far as convincing somebody to vote for them is going to shift from the black community somehow, some way into the illegal immigrant community, into the refugee community, and into the growing LGBT community, which they've been sowing the seeds for a while. Back in the 2000s, Barack Obama said he personally opposed gay marriage. And then later on, within his own presidential administration, he said, yeah, we're going to open the door up for that. He saw the early trends, and he communicated with his DNC cabal, and they decided that they were going to legalize this. They were going to promote it. They were going to put it in everybody's faces. And then only in a matter of years, they have the military itself putting out ads promoting LGBT relationships above actually making sure our soldiers are strong.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to put my foot on somebody that's out here pushing this propaganda, destroying our country. I don't know where, I'm hoping that we turn around, right? I mean, I believe God is in control of a lot of things. Maybe we're reaping what we sow, as a country, with the influx of corruption that we've been doing, sexual exploitation of people all over our country, OnlyFans and women, all this other stuff that we've been doing as a country and allowing people to do. Maybe we're reaping what we sow, but I really do wonder, like, when is this going to flow? You know, they say that this type of stuff ebb and flows. When is it going to flow in the right direction? Because, man, we are going to the lowest of the low. LGBT getting pushed to young kids. We got they flew a LGBTQ flag, I think, in Afghanistan. They one of the military bases. It's like, what in the does that got to do with war?
Oh.
Nobody cares who you bumping and grinding, pumping and sweating with. We're talking about war. We're talking about you going out and being a soldier. Nobody cares about your sexual orientation. It's how stupid are the people that run our country?
Yeah, and Brent,
I'll tell you what, I think that flag, the flag you're discussing, actually probably projects more of what modern America is and sort of the globalist American empire is than the actual American flag itself. I mean, I'm not the first person to come up with that point, but it is an interesting point, right? To see the BLM flag and the pride flag kind of flying at our embassies and our bases around the world. It tells you a lot. It really tells you something about what we're actually spreading to the world and kind of what the idea of the American empire is as compared to the American nation, which I think should be represented by the American flag. But
100%. If you're in the word America, screw you if you don't believe in the American flag. That's my personal opinion. Go ahead, Chandler, and then I'm gonna go to this question.
Yeah, and Brandon, and to show you just how things have been promoted, the young community combined with the LGBT community, Vince and I can tell you, it is nearly impossible to find a Gen Z girl that doesn't have pronouns in her bio and doesn't have some wacky sexual orientation in her bio. It's bar none. You can only find them at like youth political conferences, and even so, they're already starting to march there. I've seen so many conservative girls that for some reason who preach, I'm so pro-Trump, have the pronouns in the bio. It is such madness, and you really have to wonder how is this happening to our children? Well, it's happening in the education system. It is literally like there was a tweet from a teacher who said, I want to introduce my children, my students to kink culture. Is there a safe way I can do this? And you're like, dude, what? And of course, right now they're saying, okay, well, this teacher should be thrown in jail. This teacher shouldn't have a job. What's going to happen in 2 years? Because 5 years ago, if you had said a teacher, well, I want to talk to my kids about how we should be open to the LGBT, at that time, that's all it was, LGBT community, or we should be open to homosexuality, gay marriage, that person would have said, okay, well, this person needs to do their job. So we're seeing how this window of traditionalism begins to shrink, and the children, especially the Gen Z age, that literally identify more with the LGBT flag than the American flag, you have to wonder, what are they going to do when they become adults? Like Vince said, American culture and society isn't hinged on patriotism, isn't hinged on nationalism. It is hinged on race and sexual orientation. That is Black Lives Matter and the LGBT community. Those flags fly at the same level, if not higher, than the American flag in embassies and across the world. And even in Jamaica, it's an amazing thing I saw in Jamaica, they were protesting outside of the American embassy. Yeah, you saw that. They were protesting saying, this is disgusting. You guys are flying the LGBT flag on the same pole as the American flag. Meanwhile, your embassy is here in our nation. You're spreading this to our children, our people. We're not going to stand for this. We're going to protest this. And the fact that Americans aren't willing to protest the defacement of the honor of their nation across the world, but other people in other nations are, is a statement in and of itself of how far we have gotten and how far we need to go if we're going to fix this nation.
Chandler for president. All right. I just want to say that Chandler for president.
Quick note about Jamaica. I think LGBT stuff might actually be illegal. I'm not quite sure, but it's called buggery. That's an actual law. And if it's not illegal now, it was illegal for men and like that. That was actually illegal to do that.
Buggery law. Yeah, I see a buggery law in the UK. It says England passed the Buggery Act, which made sexual relations between men a criminal offense punishable by death. And it says in Britain, sodomy remained a capital offense, punishment by hanging until 1861. 2 decades later, in 1885, Parliament passed the amendment sponsored by Henry Dupree, which created it cut off right here. But it's a little history of it. The Buggery Act of 1533. I'm sure that this is what you're talking about, that then went into effect in places like Jamaica and stuff like that. But
it's still there to this day right now. So if it's actually illegal in your country to do that, you got an LGBT flag. It's like, wait a minute, this ain't, this isn't, we're not here. It's not where we're at right now.
You know what's funny is that I'm not here to like do anything with bashing LGBTQ or nothing, but America. And I'm telling you this, like, we are supposed to be a Christian nation. How does Jamaica live, thrive, function with this issue being I don't know if it's still punishable by death, but it's illegal to do those acts. I honestly believe, and this is my opinion, and people are going to be mad at me for saying this, but I wonder sometimes, have America gotten too soft on these things? You know, I remember back in the day, I think somebody was on the panel last week, I think it was Ty, that was talking about the way they categorize HIV or AIDS. Back in the day, it was considered to be a homosexual transmitted disease. And now they've softened it up and just act like you can just get it from anywhere around the world. And knowing that a lot of it is coming from people driving down the wrong street, if you know what I'm saying. Now, why can't we hold these things in place as they were? I don't understand, because as soon as you give them an inch, they take a whole mile. Yeah. And we went from changing sexual dysphoria, or what is it called?
Gender dysphoria.
Gender dysphoria as a mental illness. Homosexuality used to be a mental illness. I think in the 70s. I think it was a mental illness in the 70s.
Yes.
How do we go from that to now they pushing it on little kids and they turning genders and it's 7 years old? This is why Jamaica still have this law in effect. And if you want to do some stuff in your closet, man, nobody gonna be in your room trying to catch you. But if you are going to outwardly express this stuff and push this to kids, man, it should be illegal to do these things. Sexuality should be remaining as a function for adults. It should not be pushed to these kids. Yeah. And if we don't stand somewhere, I know it's uncomfortable for people to think about somebody doing an LGBT act to be illegal, but you got to stop somewhere. Because you say, oh, that don't sound right to make that. Okay, pedophilia is not going to sound that bad in 20 years from now. I'm telling you, the fact that cross-dressing men, I don't know what's called, drag queens.
Yeah,
I think that's men dressing like women, and they're sexualizing the identity of women. They're not coming to school with just a wig on, with wearing male clothes and just putting a wig on to identify somewhat with women. They are dressed sexually provocative, and they're over sexualizing the identity of women by putting on tons of makeup and putting on this scandalous class stuff, and then they're promoting that and doing story time with kids in grade school.
You know, Brandon, I knew what being gay, bi, lesbian, transgender was before I knew how our government system works. That really shows you how it was impressed on all of us as children. And keep in mind, I was raised in Georgia. That's all the stereotypes say, oh, well, Georgia will never get there. We got there. And this was, 2012 was about when I first learned what that meant. And there was all these different things that were coming at me. And I was like, well, what is this? I spent so much time learning about it that you would really wonder if I spent any time learning about anything else. It was such a crazy thing that was impressed on all of our children. And now it's everywhere. It is seriously everywhere.
I'm going to say this concept, and I know it's going to sound weird. Too much freedom is a bad thing. Now, hear me out. I'm not talking about the concept of freedom in America. What I'm saying is that if you are a Christian and you read the Bible, there is a concept of too much freedom. There are the laws that were put into place. You can't just do whatever you want to do, right? Left to your own demise. And I'm not saying the government should do this. It's a God thing. You left to your own demise. People will be killing each other at a whim. People will be raping women and doing all kinds of stuff at a whim. But God had to put in place laws, the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not kill. That means you can't do whatever you want to do. There may be some people that get mad at somebody and want to kill them. Well, the law of God said you cannot kill. You should not commit adultery. Too much freedom causes humans in their inherent nature to do evil things. And that's why I feel like that we as a nation should crack down on some of these things, because you leave people to their devices, they're going to have your kids pimped out in elementary school. There are parents who will swear by God right now that they're Christian, and their little kids got mini skirts on and chokers and stuff. And you like,
oh nah,
you're like, man, your kid's a baby. Like, why they even make clothes for babies like that? Why your kid wearing booty shorts and they like 11? Like, what are you doing here? Go ahead.
I think that is kind of a common misperception that we have sort of developed in modern America, which is essentially that the founders set up a system where like anyone could do what they want. You look at a lot of the stuff the founders said. For instance, you have John Adams famously saying, our Constitution was written for a moral and religious people, right? The expectation at the time of the founding of America was that, we don't really need this government to come in and enforce all the standards because the general population is going to do that anyway. You look at who kind of fought the American Revolution and led the American Revolution. The colonies who were most engaged were the New England colonies, who were heavily Puritan, right? Like Massachusetts, these colonies and stuff like that. They had pretty strict, not just laws, but also just standards on the books. And the expectation was that there are going to be these societal standards. You have to actually enforce standards as a society. And it's also, I think, important to point out that the common kind of Christian understanding up until like about the 1800s, 1900s of what liberty meant was not really so much what we believe it means to mean today. You know, liberty back then was sort of more considered to mean like discipline, right? You kind of achieve liberty, you kind of achieve freedom through being disciplined and through basically avoiding vice, avoiding sin, which will ultimately just basically cause you to destroy yourself. And that's kind of what I think we kind of need to return to. That's like the true idea of what it means to be free. You're not free if you're basically destroying yourself totally, whether that's through sex, drugs, porn, alcohol. You're not truly free. That's not freedom. You're actually oppressed. You're actually basically enslaved by whatever that vice that is that you're committing.
I love that you said that, Vince, because you know, when you look at the Bible, you look at the concept of it, freedom and liberty is truth and being righteous. That's freedom. It's not free to be held bound by your devices, influences by a demonic structure. You know, think about this for a minute. If a man were to have a girlfriend or whatever that they love and they cheat on her, subconsciously, I mean, some men probably don't care. They just dirty dogs. But most people feel guilty when they do something wrong or they offend somebody. They're feeling, Hunter, he too high on crack or something for him to care about these things. But most people have a conscience. The Bible talks about the conscience that's within humanity outside of scripture, that even your own conscience bear witness to the truth of God. Like, people feel bad for doing certain things. Nobody want to see another human being killed. If a person just randomly see a person get killed, the emotional, visceral experience by another human watching another human get killed is something that's uncontrollable. Within your own nature as a human, to a certain degree, you understand what's right and what's wrong. Think about this for a minute. When you have children, your children are sponges. They go everywhere. They do whatever. That's why you need a father and a mother in the home to send them on the right path. The sponge does not know to go left or go right. And that's why you raise them with structure, raise them with guidelines and barriers and rules, because you know these are effective to becoming the best version of yourself. Natural human state of sin is just destroying people. I mean, because, the people that get hurt through selfishness and not service is abounding in our country. And you made an incredible point. People forget this all the time, is that the idea of government isn't to control your life. The idea of government is to ensure that you have the God-given, freedoms that were already afforded to you. They are just making sure those things get displayed. And if something interferes with it, government will step in and give you assure you that your freedom is not being, distracted from. Go ahead.
I think that's what's so dystopian about modern America is obviously you are told that you are free, but free to do what exactly? You are, yes, free to destroy yourself. You are free to start OnlyFans. You are free to, live like the worst possible lifestyle you can. And you have consumerism that basically allows you to do that as efficiently as possible. But are you truly free in the 21st century to actually live the American dream, right? Are you free to, and by free, I don't mean like legally you can do it, but is it actually kind of feasible in society to really live that sort of traditional American ideal of, I'm going to get married somewhere like my late teens, my early 20s, have children, buy a house, white picket fence. Like, you are not free to live like that. You're not free to kind of raise your kids in peace. You're not even free at this point to open your own business and kind of run your own life, right? You're not free to do any of those things, but you're absolutely free to, buy subscriptions to porn websites and, engage in vice and sin. You're totally free to do that, but you're not actually free to kind of live a proper lifestyle, a good, I think, moral and positive lifestyle.
Yes. You're free to do what you want, but you're not free from consequences.
Yeah.
And that's just what it is.
Yeah. In the modern day, freedom has been sort of perverted and sort of inverted in many ways, because originally freedom, like Vince said, was for the moral and for the religious. Your freedom to, the Puritans and the people who were fighting against that religious persecution, they wanted the freedom to have their connection to their creator. That was that. And to expand upon that, they wanted their freedom to, like you said, have that white picket fence. And that just kind of grew. We had an amazing period of time in which that was the freedom we had. And then that freedom sort of shifted. And so the freedom and feasibility, like you said, to have that white picket fence lifestyle shrunk. Meanwhile, the freedom and feasibility to have all these disgusting vices, have junk food, have all these consumerist connections to just terrible things grew more and more. And sure, we have great things that have come from this much development and acceleration of information, like phones and things, but those phones further induced our connection to these disgusting things. It increased our connection to even further things, because 10, 15 years ago, the only big issue we had was the connection to pornography and all sorts of other things like that. And now as it is expanded to other forms of, as I probably shouldn't say that word, so I won't say it, but other things that give us connection to the LGBT community, those vices have grown themselves as well. And you can call it freedom all you want, but are you really free from those connections? Are you really free from those urges, or do they control you? Because every time I've met people that are controlled by these things, it's all they think about. It's all they can talk about. It's their only personality. Meanwhile, I meet people who live the traditional lifestyle and they're talking about, I love my wife. I love my house. I love what I do with my job. I love watching some things on entertainment TV. I watch sports here and there, but I most love life. I most love God. I most love my family. They're not obsessed with these vices. I'm not saying, they're not saying, oh, look at that guy there, look at that girl there. They're out there saying, like, I wonder what I can do at work today to make my life even better. I wonder how my wife's gonna greet me when I walk through the door. She's gonna have a nice dinner for me. My parents gonna have, or my kids gonna have a nice drawn dinosaur for me. Are they going to have gone to school and actually learned something valuable? Are they going to have gone to school without a face mask? Are they going to go to school without terrible things hearing from other children? You can't really have that dream anymore. And so the American dream has been perverted. And so the American dream now is, well, what we've seen. And if we're going to get back to that, we have to fight for that traditional lifestyle, or at least have more and more people acknowledge that freedom isn't the freedom to be what we've connected to.
I agree 100%. ABL.
Now, I'm going to say something. I think what's happening here is that religion and God has been taken away. Take away religion, take away God, and then you replace it with whatever kind of God they want to have you. It's like, okay, you don't have any center, you don't have any core of your life. I'll put these vices, I'll put this pornography, I'll put this terrible music, terrible food. I'll put all these things in your way. I'll put the LGBT. I'll make that be your center. I'll make maybe even the politics be your center. So you see all these people that want to fight tooth and nail to the death over an idea, over something very small, because that's their life. That's their center. They don't really have a fulfilled and meaningful life. They don't have any kind of real purpose. What's that? My purpose is to basically be a show for this particular thing over here, for the state, for this weird ideology that was going on. And to get back to this whole thing about some of these young girls of age, of course, you understand what I'm saying? But girls that you young men would be dating, what's happening with that is that they're trying to get attention by doing this. They think, hey, you know what? The weirder I am on social media, the most ridiculous thing I can do will get me attention. Maybe I don't have any kind of love from my daddy or my mommy or anything like that. Maybe they're too busy on their phone. So you know what? I'm gonna go on TikTok and call myself a unicorn, a Godzilla, making up all kinds
of self.
Yeah, they self, ram self. I'll make these things up, and now I'm gonna get attention. It might be negative. I be kind of clowning you, but at the same time, they're going to be protected by mainstream media, politicians. So let them be whoever they want to be. Give them the room to be able to breathe. And they find solace in that. And then here they are at 28 years old on all types of pills, like laying on the ground.
Antidepressants.
You guys may have seen that New Yorker cover with this woman at her desk covered in filth. This is like the modern woman. That's what they were trying to push.
Oh, yeah.
Cats everywhere. That's how they want you to be, because at that point, in this particular stage, easy to control. So whatever kind of propaganda they want to feed you, you're just like a piece of clay. They could just pump it into your brain with no resistance. But when you have an actual foundation, when you get religion or something, some kind of real core, they can't do that to you, because you already know who you are and you know what purpose is going to be. But if you don't have that, you could pretty much do whatever they want.
Yeah, 100%. I want to go back to this point real quick, and I'm going to wrap it up for us, and you guys can tell everybody where they can find you, your merch or whatever. But I just want to go back to the indulging in whatever you want, right? You could say you have the freedom to have as much relations as you want to have. Anybody with common sense, anybody that have, that's lived this life for a while, that leads to a negative end. That's why there's articulation in biblical structure that tells you should not fornicate. You should be married, because it ends in a poor state. Although the human mind may believe that this is pleasurable, I'm going to have fun doing this, but then it ends poorly. That's why there's guidelines. That's why there's a God in place to keep you on track so you can ultimately be free. You can do whatever you want to do, but you got to understand that there's guidelines in place that can help you from the consequences that you do not want to face. You know, you can open your mind and watch whatever you want to watch on TV. That's not always a benefit to you, because then you'll get caught up in the LGBTQ stuff. People get curious
Disney
in the
Channel.
trunk. I mean, I'm telling you, man, you grew up without your father, and young boys get curious in the different things. They don't have any guidance, or you grew up as an awkward introvert type person. You don't have, you don't feel like you gaining any ground with the young ladies. Then you get turned out to some stuff that you should not be involved in because you've been overly exposed to stuff. As a young kid trying to figure yourself out, if you don't have a strong father in your life and you're feminized because you're around nothing but women all day, you could fall down a path of destruction. And all of these things come together, in my opinion, come together with biblical structure. And we have been built to follow God's law. And when you do that, you live in true freedom. You live free of vices. You understand the benefits of serving others and not serving yourself. Because any research, and I don't have to be a scientist to prove this, any research, when you're having a bad day and these things are falling apart, you doing for other people will make you happier than if somebody gave you something. Doing for others is a measurable way to make yourself even more happy. Serving other people is what's rooted in our structure to be happy. But I wish that people would understand these concepts. Losing God is losing our nation. And whether or not, it's the Christianity or whatever the case may be, because Christians nowadays, I mean, my God, I'm embarrassed to say I'm a Christian nowadays. But anyway, I'll close it with that. Thank you guys for watching. Every Thursday, I have some incredible guests. ABL is normally always here. Chandler, Vince, you did a great job. I feel like Chandler and Vince will be president, vice president, or whichever way y'all want to do it.
It's so
whoever
true.
get voted in first, man. Y'all are the future young people with brilliant minds. I feel like both of y'all are a lot smarter than me. But I don't know about ABL. ABL may got y'all, but y'all probably smarter than me. But anyway, I want to thank y'all for coming on here. Thank everybody for watching. Y'all hit the like button. ABL, tell people. Now we're gonna finish with ABL. Chandler, tell people where they can find you. If you got merch, subscribe to you, whatever. Tell people where they can find more of Chandler Crump.
First things first, I want to remind everybody, 45 minutes, stream Vax Rebel on all streaming platforms, music, all that. But if you'd like to find me for more of my actual political commentary content, you can find me on YouTube at Chandler Crump Live. I'm active on Twitter and every alternative social media platform. So to list a couple of those, Twitters at RealC, CRUMP. It is the same for Gab. I'm on Gab. I'm on Gitter at Chandler. You can find me on Rumble at Chandler_Crump. Rumble's an alternative to YouTube. All sorts of great places like that. You can look my name up, Chandler, and you'll usually find me on those places. And a great thing about these alternative platforms is that they are willing to actually verify people who have a risk of being impersonated. So you should be able to see me up there with a check or something. That's how you know it's me. Definitely check me out on all those platforms. And thank you so much for having me, Brandon. I'd love to come on again.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'll definitely have you back on, Chandler. Also, Chandler, you got to get all your handles the same, man, so people could just put Chandler Crump.
It's either real CCRUMP or at Chandler.
Okay, perfect. You got a website?
Yes, I do. It's chandlercrump.locals.com.
Okay, perfect. So when you go to his website, you should be able to find everything in one spot. You find all his handles. I think y'all heard him. If you didn't hear him, go back and play the tape. I don't have to do this for you. Anyway, Vince, tell people where they can find you, man. You're an incredible young man. I didn't realize I wasn't following you on Twitter, so I went and followed you on Twitter. But tell us where we can find you, where they can subscribe to you, whatever you got.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So I would say, I guess since we're on YouTube, I would say mainly go subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's just my name, Vince Dow. I'm sure you could find that through the search bar. And then you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at the Vince Dow. So just the in front of my name, one word. And if you're an alt tech person, I have a Telegram channel. It's t.me/Vince Dow. And we also have a nonprofit that I'm a part of called the American Populist Union. It's kind of like a America First, right-wing nationalist kind of organization. And you can find that on Twitter and Instagram at Populist Union. And we also have a YouTube channel just called the American Populist Union too. But mainly, I would say probably my YouTube channel. That's probably like the main place to find the best content. So.
Perfect, man. I love your input, man. You're incredible. I got to have you guys on. I need to have more people on. I need to do probably 6 people on here at some point in time. ABL, the old man on the show, man. How you? Where they can find you, man? I wanted to call you the veteran. I meant to say the veteran.
Hey, I'm the oldest. It's all right. It's all good and handsome. But anyway, you guys can find me on YouTube, of course. You could just search ABL. That's real easy. Just 3 letters, ABL. I'll pop right on the first result. Also, go to the website, anthonyblogan.com. That is ANTHONY, the letter B, LOGAN.com. Go to the contact page. Everything is on there. My email, my snail mail, all my social media accounts. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, YouTube, like I said earlier. Also, go to ablmerch.com. We got these hats. We still got a few more of these. We got a few more in stock. And I got a bunch of more other hats, t-shirts, stickers, hoodies, and more. ablmerch.com. We got more coming soon. That's pretty much it.
All right, perfect. And if you guys don't know who I am, I think most people that follow this YouTube channel, you already know who I am. But if you don't know who I am, you watch me for the first time, make sure you subscribe to this channel, The Officer Tatum, on everything. So you put in The Officer Tatum, you'll find me, my website, whatever. So if you go to my website, you'll find every single thing I do. My book that's coming out, my merch store. And I just want to give a quick plug to my merch store. We have some Impeach Biden shirts on my merch store. So I know a lot of people want that and wear that around to show that Joe Biden is a complete nut job. But beyond that, for people who are in the military, if you're a police officer, firefighter, if you're a teacher, a nurse, a truck driver, we offer discounts on our store. All you got to do is click the button at the top. You'll put your information in. We'll verify that you are in fact doing that career, and you'll get a discount on my store on everything. Store-wide, you'll get it forever. So as long as you serve, if you can even be a veteran in the military, you don't have to be active duty. As long as you serve, just go and click on that box. You'll find it. But thank you guys for joining this chat. We do it every Thursday, unless, you know, I'm out of town or something of that nature. But I appreciate everything you guys have done. I'm gonna say a prayer because they told me to say a prayer. So I'll have you guys can wait with me or whatever. I'll just pull you guys out. I'll do a prayer, and then y'all stay in the back office because I want to chat with you just a little bit before I close it out. All right, is that cool? All right, appreciate y'all. ABL in the house,
Thanks.
Vince in the house, and Chandler in the house. Y'all stay tuned. All right. So y'all wanted me to do a prayer. I'm gonna say a quick prayer. I'm not gonna be long-winded. I'm not gonna be an apostolic pastor, and I'm not gonna ask for an offering. Okay. So, but if you want to join me in prayer, you can bow your heads and I'm gonna pray real quick. Okay. Lord, thank you for waking us up for another day, a new opportunity to serve you, a new opportunity to show you how much we love you and to try to perfect the things that you have put into place for us to do. God, we pray for our country. We pray for the people in America. We pray for the people all over the world, especially in Haiti, America, and Afghanistan, because there's a lot of things that are going on specifically involving those 3 locations, and especially the Americans in Afghanistan. God, we pray for their safety. And God, I pray that you're sovereign and that you show your sovereignness over all of those things, God. Rescue those Christians who are out asking for your help. Answer those prayers, God. I really pray that you do those things for them. Show the world how sovereign you are. And I know that we can't tell you what to do, but God, if I can make any request, and you told me to ask, so I'm asking right now, God, put your hand on those individuals that need you the most. God, we pray for our country. We pray for even Joe Biden. God, that you help these people make the right decision to improve your kingdom and also the betterment of the American people. God, save our country. It's going downhill fast, and God, we just rely on you. We pray that you, that people find you, give us the ability to be more open to reach out to people, to draw them near. And God, we pray all these things in the name of Jesus. Amen. All right. Thank y'all. 4,000 people watching. I'm in a mega church right now, praying. So it's an incredible blessing to be able to have a channel like this, because I do pray for people. I have been baptized, filled with the Holy Spirit. So y'all know I ain't no joker up here just running his mouth, being a fake Christian. Like I actually do have, the ability and a relationship with God to say a prayer like that. So I love you guys, man. I appreciate everybody. Thank you all for the super chats. Thank you all for staying here during the prayer. 4,000 people hung in here, which is an incredible blessing. Every Thursday at 6:30 Pacific Standard Time, we have a little panel discussion. If y'all got people that y'all want to come on the panel at another time, Throw their name out there, put them out there. We'll look them up. We'll have them on. I think Vince and Chandler, it's their first time coming on the channel. We'll love to have them back. But I appreciate you guys. I love you. Y'all have a good night. Be blessed. I'll see you on the next one. I'm out.